Alrighty, hello, Jeremy. How are you today?
How are you doing, Jarlene?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for asking. I am beyond excited to chat with you today. You have an incredible background, incredible professional experience, but I would love for you to really kickstart our interview and tell me a little bit about your professional experience.
Yes, my professional experience is basically in banking and finance and insurance. I've also worked in HR, and my financial experience also includes accounts receivable, accounts payable, also prioritizing accounts by balancing checks and balances for high level customers and vendors.
That is incredible. And thank you for sharing that with me. I have your resume pulled up here, Jeremy, and your most latest role was at Spectrum. Tell me a little bit about what your day to day looked like.
My day to day look like basically taking inbound calls from current and new customers, also prioritizing communication sales of video, high speed data. Also,
Mhm.
in addition to that, also home phone products and also mobile products, and basically making sure every percentage metrics was met as far as how many calls were being taken as opposed to how many sales were made on those percentages.
Perfect. So a lot of your day was more or less that inside sales slash customer service. And thank you for sharing that with me. Again, I'm looking at your resume. I see the role prior to Spectrum was as a human resources for immigration, or I would say for it was an immigration um, facility. Tell me a little bit about that role. You were there for about 2 years.
Yes, my role at PwC primarily illustrated helping international employees move to our United States locations. We had employees in India, also uh, Indonesia, and also some employees in Canada. And my job was to help those employees get their visas, whether it's H-1B A or H-1B visa, to basically move their or transfer from their roles in our international locations over to our roles here in the United States, which could have been anywhere from New York to Florida or over to California.
That's incredible. And I can only assume that that role was very rewarding, especially with the communications with the, I don't know if you call them clients or the customer. So super cool role in that one. Looking
Mhm.
back again at your roles, and I see that you worked at Coca-Cola for about 8 years. You started as a shared services, human resources rep, and then you went over to a pricing coordinator. Tell me a little bit about that.
In starting with Coca-Cola, I started as a HR representative in their shared services department. I was primarily responsible for going over benefits with our employees. That could have been their health insurance, medical insurance, life insurance, or also in some cases leave of absence for disability insurance. And when those employees called in, we would basically manage those particular priorities through what their inquiry was for. And like I said, also in some cases, we're also managing, use as an intermediary between claims. If an employee had a claim issue with one of our insurance companies that we use at Coca-Cola, we would get involved and we would also call that particular insurance vendor to make sure our employees' claims were covered, or if the claim wasn't covered, we would get an explanation of benefits for that claim. And then after about a year and a half in HR, I moved over into finance. It was a more lucrative role and considered as a promotion in finance. I was basically a pricing coordinator. As a pricing coordinator, I was responsible for managing pricing for large companies like Walmart, 7-Eleven, at the time Kmart when they were in business, Sears, and other companies that any companies that use Coca-Cola refreshment products. And in doing that, I was responsible for our at once our sales or team had placed the order, they would submit that in the system where we could put that. My responsibilities were for putting that pricing into the system and making sure the customers bill it appropriately. And then once that happens, the actual sales order or my particular pricing ticket would go over to our routing team, which would then send the routing out to our trucking units, and they would make sure the customer received that order in a timely basis, depending on how soon our sales department submitted that order.
Amazing. And it sounds like at Coca-Cola, excuse me, you've been able to really just start see all sorts of aspects in that role, right? Being in HR and moving
Mhm.
over to and getting promoted as a pricing coordinator. So I think that's super incredible that you have that insight. Now, you mentioned your experience with AR, accounts receivable. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yes. Well, basically, in the AR role with accounts receivable, was basically receiving accounts that from a billing perspective, after the customer was any order was placed, would make sure if there was any balance left over, or any delinquent balance, the accounts receivable portion of that, I would receive notification that the customer owed us a certain amount, and we would look and see if they had any credits or any other particular discounts appropriate, and then that would be sent out to them in the mail as to what they owed. So it was basically dealing with accounts receivable and accounts payable in some cases, because in some cases when you got those accounts receivable, you may have a customer that still had a balance or a delinquent balance, and if that balance was not paid, then those accounts would go from my department over to our collections team, and they would call our customers and try to retrieve the amount of accounts payable, but the accounts receivable part was received from through my department first.
Incredible. And do you recall, and excuse me, I'm freezing on my end, but do you recall any systems or that you use for accounts receivable and not only accounts receivable, but other roles? So just tell me in general what type of systems you have worked with.
The systems that I would work with, if we were doing like a reconciliation, it may be a Microsoft Excel document, Microsoft Access to basically run any particular um, macro charts. We
Mhm.
use macros in Microsoft Access that could run a report, per se, if we were trying to see if 7-Eleven received all their products as opposed to what they paid. Um, we will also use the main system for pricing was moved over from an MS-DOS system named Edge over to SAP, which is a newer system which a lot of companies use nowadays. That's more of a more up-to-date system as far as computer technology is concerned from a corporate standpoint. In using SAP, we're responsible for going in there and making any adjustments to the pricing. SAP could also do any reconciliations or any credits that the customer may be due or owed.
That is perfect. Thank you for sharing that with me. And my last question, or actually my two last questions for you. I know the holidays are coming up here, Jeremy, but do you have any vacation time or any days off that you'll be needing at all in the next, month or so?
Not at this time. Not at this time. We had some untimely passings in the family, but at this time, I don't foresee any time off in at least in the next 5 to 6 months.
Thank you for sharing. And last question was, how soon were you looking to start a
I
new
was
role?
I was looking to start a new role, most likely in at least in the next 7 to 10 days, as soon as possible.
Perfect. That sounds amazing to me, and I'm excited to help you with your journey. I just want to thank you for the time that you spent with me this afternoon. I am going to stop recording. If you don't mind, stay on the line with me. I want to chat with you really quickly.
Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you, Jarlene.
Absolutely.